Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. The story begins as a man is getting absolutely destroyed while training, and he fears that he will not survive. A group of onlookers are glad to see that he has improved over the past couple of years, and they determine that the upcoming E-rank test won't be a problem for him. A while later, entrants for the E-rank promotion test are registered. Our protagonist Rick is one of them, and the receptionist named Alyssa is happy to see him again. It's been 2 years since they last saw each other, and it was when Rick used to be a guild clerk. She was surprised to hear that Rick became an adventurer, and he can't blame her because starting off as an adventurer at age 30 is pretty unthinkable. Normally people start off as F-rank apprentices when they are teenagers and become E-rank just 2 years after that. Alyssa wonders where he has been, so Rick explains that he was up in the mountains training with some senior adventurers. Some unruly drunk guy tries to make advances towards Alyssa, but Rick calms him down. Everyone's attention turns to them when the guy passes out, so Rick reminds everyone to drink responsibly. Alyssa gives him his exam ticket and wishes Rick luck on the E-rank test. Rick is horrified though when his ticket has the really unlucky number of 4242. Outside, Rick tells some girl named Rionette that he finished registering, and she reminds him where her eyes are. Back inside, everyone is shocked to see an imprint of Rick's hand on the drunk guy's armor because it's made of steel. What's even more shocking is that the drunk guy is an infamous former A-rank adventurer. His name is Domo the Fiendish Knight, and he is a wanted criminal. Alyssa is then shocked when she wonders if Rick has become strong enough to easily leave an imprint in steel armor. A while later, Rick's height is measured, and the examiners are shocked to see that he's 32 years old. After that, participants have their magical energy tested by putting their hands on a crystal ball. A couple guys get D-, and one girl gets a C+. Rick's turn is next, but the light he generates from the crystal is pathetic, and he's given an F-. The others have never seen a score so low, and they hope they never end up like Rick. Rick leaves, but the examiner is shocked when the crystal ball breaks. The next exam has participants attack something to measure the force they can generate. The device can absorb insanely powerful attacks, so participants are told not to hold back. This device is a slime bag, and a look into the past shows someone teaching Rick about it. He was told that the human body is the foundation of a good fighter, regardless of what weapons or magic they have. Rick was instructed to destroy the golden slime bag with his bare hands, because once he could do that, he will have built a body that he could trust. However, this golden slime bag is known for being as strong as dragon's teeth. Rick was sure that he wouldn't be able to destroy it with his bare hands, but he was told that doing so is simple for an adventurer. His instructor revealed that he could destroy 200 at once and demonstrated a bit of his power. Rick had to work his way up by hitting the bag with 50,000 punches every single day. Back to the present, one guy impresses everyone when he attacks a bag using strengthening magic. Some little guy is up next, and he declares that the time to show his strength has finally come. This kid is the second son of the Duke, and rumors say that even though he's just 11 years old, he has magic equivalent to a C rank. This child prodigy then shocks everyone when he prepares his attack. His setup is truly a grand display, but everyone is shocked when the attack turns out to be a tiny fireball. Everyone is still impressed by the damage it does, and they call him a genius. Rick is in awe as well, because the kid used level 3 nature composed blaze magic. Another look back at Rick's training shows some little girl using an insanely powerful fire attack on him. Both attacks were blaze attacks, but they looked really different, so Rick wonders if the kid compressed his for indoor use. Soon it is Rick's turn, but the examiner doesn't expect much from him. If magic isn't trained at a young age, then the chances for growth later in life is impossible. On top of that, Rick's results from the magic test were pitiful, so the examiner recommends that Rick just give up now. Rick actually agrees with everything he said, but he can't help but think back to his training. Rick was exhausted from punching the bag one day, but he refused to give up. Rick acknowledges that he started his journey really late, but he believes that his age shouldn't matter. Because of this, Rick strikes the bag and shocks everyone when he absolutely destroys it with a single punch. Rick doesn't even know his own strength though, as he wonders if the bag was just defective. Everyone watches in terror as they wonder who he is. The kid is furious at Rick for stealing the attention, but he plans to show off during the defensive ability test. Moments later though, we see that everyone is shocked again when Rick defends against level 4 nature composed magic, something the kid couldn't even do. The examiner is surprised to hear that Rick only used level 1 magic to block the attack, so he decides to go up 1 level for the next one. He will use level 5 attack magic, so the examiner suggests that Rick use something higher than level 1 defense magic. Rick then shocks everyone yet again when he reveals that he can only use level 1 magic on offense and defense. Rick assures the examiner that he will be okay though, so the examiner takes offense as he believes that Rick is underestimating him. The examiner decides not to hold back and starts his incantation. He unleashes the level 5 attack, shocking everyone with its immense power, and even some knight worries about it from really far away. His name is Sylvester, and he rushes to the arena because he couldn't believe such a powerful attack would be used during an exam. Sylvester is then informed about Rick and how he was able to block a level 5 attack with just level 1 defense magic. He assumes it must be some kind of joke, but he is told that it isn't. It's just an impressive 32-year-old F-rank adventurer. Rick's report reveals that he was a guild receptionist for 13 years. Sylvester doesn't seem to know what a receptionist is though, and Rick's power makes him wonder if it's a title given to someone who has defeated a dragon. After the written exam, Rick expresses how confident he is that he aced it. Just then, the prodigy named Freed angrily approaches Rick. Rick barely remembers this kid, so he assumes that he's lost and offers to help him find his parents. The kid is furious though, and explains that Rick took all the attention away from him. Just then, Freed's older sister Angelica arrives and is upset that Rick made her brother cry. Freed says that the 40-year-old man ruined everything, but Rick angrily corrects him by saying that he's only in his 30s. Angelica only believes her brother though, and challenges the 40-year-old man to a duel. Rick points out that she just got her glove dirty, but Barehanded explains that picking up the glove means he has accepted the duel. Moments later, the two arrive in an arena, and Angelica declares that she must punish the old man. Duels in the kingdom allow each participant to propose one condition for the duel. Angelica proposes that the loser must act as the victor's servant until the end of their life, and her brother cheers her on. Angelica is a second-class knight, and Rick is shocked to hear that this means she's the same level as a B-rank adventurer. B-rank adventurers are powerful enough to defeat monsters on their own, but Barehanded still tells Rick to take it easy on her. Rick thinks she has it all wrong though, and points out that he's just an F-rank adventurer that just registered a couple days ago. Rick fears that he won't make it out of the duel alive, so Barehanded tells him to just remember his training from the past 2 years. Rick begins to be inspired by the training montage that plays in his head, but he remembers how terrible it was, and it just makes him throw up. Barehanded tells him to be more confident, and reminds him of the group that trained him. The group called Orichalcum Fist prides itself on being the strongest in the continent, and they consider Rick to be one of its members. Rick thanks Barehanded for restoring his confidence, and steps up to Angelica. Angelica knows that Rick is an F-rank, so she promises to refrain from ending his life. She prepares for the fight, and Rick can tell that she's a swordsman type that strengthens her body and weapons. Angelica wonders if he will be able to keep up with her speed, and Rick is shocked when she flies right past him. She explains that she slowed down just a bit for Rick, and she wonders if he's not talking because of how shocked he is. The little nerd laughs at the 40-year-old and explains that people call his sister the Flash because of how fast she is. Angelica declares that she will actually attack him this time without holding back, and she uses her incredibly fast attack again. Rick goes quiet again, but we see that it's actually because of how slow he sees Angelica moving. It's even slower than when Rick walks, so he wonders why anyone would call her the Flash. Rick easily dodges her attack, but Angelica thinks he just got lucky because only a handful of first-class knights are able to properly react to her speed. She is sure that he won't be able to dodge it a second time, but Rick is once again unimpressed by how slow she is moving. He can't believe that she's a knight and wonders if she became one through nepotism. Rick considers for a moment that he might actually be really strong, but he then laughs at the thought. Rick prepares to dodge the attack again, but Angelica trips and starts barreling towards him. Rick just barely manages to dodge her out of control attack, but Rick is oblivious. He couldn't read her movements at all, and assumes that it was an incredible skill of hers. This little incident makes him remember that he's just an F rank, and there's a huge gap in skill between him and a second-class knight. Angelica knows that she actually tripped, but decides to pretend like the attack was on purpose. She declares that she will attack again, but move even faster this time. Her next attack takes a great toll on her body though, so she can only use it 3 times. She uses the attack that's supposed to be way faster, but it's still pretty slow in Rick's eyes. The clueless Rick fears that she might use another terrifying rolling attack again if he makes the wrong move, so he dodges carefully. Angelica is shocked and wonders what she should do because she can only use the attack 2 more times. She decides to use her last 2 attacks in succession, and Rick realizes that he needs to fight back. Just then, Angelica trips again on her last attempt. Rick thinks it's another terrifying technique and fears that his attack won't land in time. Dust goes everywhere and everyone watches in shock. When the dust clears, we see that Rick's attack created a crater in the ground. Angelica is horrified as she realizes that if she didn't trip, then Rick's terrifyingly powerful attack would have landed on her. The clueless Rick thinks that she purposely dodged it though, and she wonders who this guy is. Rick explains that he's just an F-rank adventurer that used to be a guild receptionist 2 years ago. Rick isn't sure he can do much against a second-class knight, but he will do his best during their duel and use it as a learning experience. He excitedly prepares to continue their fight, but he is shocked when Angelica just surrenders. Freed is shocked as well, and Angelica says that she will let him win this time. She tries to get out of there as quickly as possible, but Rick reminds her about the duel conditions. Rick didn't actually propose anything, but he's fine with using hers. Angelica doesn't want to serve him for the rest of her life, so she asks her legs to exceed their limits just 1 more time and runs away. Rick doesn't really consider it a victory, but Rionette reminds him that it's time for the results of the preliminary test. Just then, Rick is shocked when Rionette reveals that the other members of their group will be arriving soon. The terrified Rick wonders why they are coming, so Rionette explains that they want to see how Rick is doing. Rick has a really bad feeling about it, but it's too late as we see that the others are on their way. We then learn about a hero that attempted to defeat the ultimate monster called Kaiser. Doing so would have rewarded him a treasure that can grant any wish. This hero failed to defeat the beast, but he had faith that an adventurer would one day be able to do it. Back with Rick, all participants are told that they will be receiving the results of the test soon. Mana will be sent to their exam tickets, and if it glows blue, then they pass. Participants that pass will then participate in a mock battle for the second stage of the exam. Rionette tells the worried Rick to be more confident, and her kindness makes him wish he were 10 years younger so they could date. Rionette isn't worried about the results because if he fails, then she decides that they will just triple Rick's training. Rick is sure that he won't survive more training like that, but he doesn't have to worry about that as his card glows blue. Rick is glad to have passed the exam, but his attention turns when he smells something terrible. Just then, some noble named Raster introduces himself, and he compliments Rionette's beauty. Rick tries to introduce himself to his fellow exam taker, but Raster declares that he has no business with a middle-aged man like Rick. Raster says that he dropped something, but this just turns out to be a pickup line when he says that he dropped his feelings of love deep inside Rionette's eyes. Raster would like to make her his wife, but Rick intervenes and declares that Rionette is his girlfriend. Raster mocks Rick for being an F rank at his advanced stage, but Rick points out that Raster looks like he's at least 25. Raster calls him an idiot as he reveals that he became an E rank at 14 years old. He is now an A rank and will be one of the examiners for the second stage of the exam. Raster tells Rionette to ditch the loser, but everyone is shocked when she refuses Raster's offer and says that she is dating Rick. Rionette then embarrasses Raster as she points out that his perfume is repulsive, and Rick realizes that this guy is what smells. Raster becomes enraged and tells Rick that he better hope that he isn't his examiner for the test. Rick apologizes to Rionette for saying she was his girlfriend, but she surprisingly didn't mind. She was actually happy that he got her out of that creepy situation. Raster, on the other hand, has come to hate Rick, and he vows to put him in his place. Just then, we learn that Frida and Angelica are his younger siblings, and they complain to him about some old guy bullying them. This of course makes him more upset, and he promises to never forgive the old guy that made his family cry. His siblings tell him Rick's exam number, and Raster comes up with a devious plan. The next day, Rionette reminds Rick to hold back his strength in the mock battle, but Rick has no clue why she would say that. Just then, some guy named Lynx explains that he will be in charge of Rick's test in the second stage. Rick is glad that his examiner isn't Raster, and Lynx thinks it's strange that a clerk in his 30s would decide to become an adventurer. Rick assumes that the guy is looking down on him, but Lynx is actually in awe of his determination. Lynx is a fellow middle-aged man, and Rick has inspired him. He can tell that Rick has a goal that is motivating him, and Rick can't believe that this guy knows so much. Lynx explains that it's because the two of them are very similar. Lynx became an adventurer at 25, and he is now in his 40s. It has taken him 20 years to reach B rank, but his goal is to become an A rank. Rick can tell that this guy won't give up on his dreams just like him, so he looks forward to testing with him. The two get along really well, as they even plan to get a drink after the exam, but we see that Raster is listening. After Lynx leaves, he thinks about how he can tell how much Rick has trained just from his handshake. This inspires Lynx to train harder, but he is shocked when Raster appears and says that he wants to talk. Back with Rick, Rionette can tell that he's in a really good mood, but participants in Rick's group are told that Lynx has fallen ill. Rick doesn't recognize the name when they are told that the replacement will be Raster, but he is shocked when Rionette explains that it was the perfume guy from the day before. She points out that he's probably related to the nobles he met earlier, and everyone else in the group laments having Raster be their examiner. They're all terrified of him, as he is known as the man of 1,000 spells. He has a more infamous nickname as well, which is the F-rank Crusher. Raster is called this because he torments participants that have gotten his attention. Rick is terrified to hear this because he did a lot more than just get Raster's attention. Elsewhere, Raster shows his immense power as he eliminates one of his own elite guards. Rick paces as he worries because he antagonized the guy that knows 1,000 spells. Rick considers himself to just be an F rank that only knows first nature magic, so he wishes he could just go home. Going home would result in his training getting tripled though, so Rick realizes that he's a dead man no matter what he does. Rick has lost all his confidence because people keep mocking him about his age, but Rionette believes that he can flip it. Instead of losing confidence, he can gain confidence when others insult him. Rick is unsure, but Rionette knows that he is strong, and she is confident that he will beat Raster and pass the exam. She has believed in Rick since the day he decided to become an adventurer, so his confidence is restored. Just then, a stranger calls him a young man, and this person can tell that Rick is struggling with something. He compliments Rick's youth and offers to do some fortune telling for him. Rick isn't so sure about it at first, but the guy offers to do the first one for free. Rick can't resist, so he goes to take a seat, but Rionette notices a magic circle on the chair. Rick disappears and the stranger reveals that he is actually freed, and he declares that he's a great actor. Rionette demands to know where he teleported Rick, but Freed refuses to say anything. The furious Rionette demonstrates her terrifying power as she slices off all of Freed's eyelashes with just the slightest movement. Rionette terrifies Freed by declaring that she will take one of his eyes next, and even lets him choose which eye he will lose. Freed is absolutely horrified and reveals that he can only teleport objects 100 meters away, so Rick should be close by. Nearby, Rick finds himself outside the venue, and he is confronted by a large group of serious-looking guys. Some butler-looking guy explains that they're the elite guards of the Darmute family, and they need Rick to sleep for a while. Rick realizes that it's the noble family that just keeps bothering him, and the guards explain that they have to make it so Rick can't participate in the exam. Rick can't believe that they're resorting to dirty tricks like stalling him, but the butler points out that they aren't stalling him, they are ganging up on him. The butler reveals that their powers are equivalent to B and A ranks, and Rick realizes that there is no way he can win. Just then, a group appears, and Rick is terrified to see that it's the senior members of his party. They wonder why Rick is outside when he should be taking the exam, and the guards are shocked to see that the big guy looks like a talking orc. The guards confront the big guy, but for some reason Rick lies and says that this group is helping him warm up before the exam. The big guy says that he will help out as well, but Rick just gets worried and pleads for the butler to have his men back off for their own good. He explains that their lives are in danger, but the butler ignores him and tells his men to eliminate everyone. One guard tries attacking the orc, but everyone is shocked when his sword shatters on the big guy's head that doesn't even move an inch. The orc commends the guy for strengthening his body, but points out that he needs to do a better job strengthening his weapons. The guy tries to punch the orc, but he's easily stopped and his hand is shattered in the process. The orc surprisingly heals him and even gives him advice on how to stay more balanced during a fight. The blonde guy in Rick's group can tell that Rick is in trouble like always and decides that he will have to resolve the issue peacefully. This guy's definition of peace is pretty messed up though, as he pulls out a giant gun and explains that it's his newest invention. This thing is a crazy weapon as it fires magic-infused crystals. The guards try to attack him, but they just end up getting a taste of the blonde guy's weapon. Rick tells him to stop, so the guy assumes that he wants to try the weapon out himself, but Rick is just worried that the guy might end their lives. Just then, one of the guards comes up with the brilliant idea to take the little girl from Rick's group hostage. He threatens to take her life, but Rick gets horrified and wonders if the guard has some kind of death wish. Even the orc tells him to let her go for his own good. The little girl wonders what the guard is doing, so Rick tries to keep her calm and tells her that he just wants to play a game. She believes him and wonders what kind of game he wants to play, but the guard foolishly decides to make his intentions clear. He hits her, so she becomes furious, and Rick can tell that they are done for. She absolutely decimates the fool, and the rest of the guards are shocked because she unleashed 7th nature level magic without an incantation. The butler now knows exactly who this little girl is, and he reveals that she is the famous vampire mage. She is the strongest mage at only 10 years old, and she is known as the demon child of ruin. Alyssa is her name, and she isn't the only famous person among the group. The blonde guy is a half-elf, half-dwarf who is more than 50 years old. He is the world's best weapons craftsman, who many think he somehow has technology from 1,000 years in the future. His name is Mizet. As for the orc, he has great intelligence and superhuman strength. He is also a master of support magic, and his name is Brodston. The guards are then stunned to hear that they're all S ranks, and members of the S rank only party known as Orichalcon Fist. The butler never thought he would live long enough to witness them with his own eyes, but now that he has decided to retire. He plans to live the rest of his life in peace, and the guards have never seen the old man so tranquil. Alyssa then has some fun destroying everyone with her one-word spells, and Rick decides that he doesn't want to have to train under these crazy people again, so he promises to do his best to pass the exam. Back at the venue, Rionette is still tormenting Freed. Freed wonders how long she plans to keep destroying stuff, so she explains that she will keep going until Rick returns. Freed confidently declares that Rick won't be coming back because his family's taking care of him, but he is shocked when Rick casually says hi to him. Rionette sends the little nerd into a wall, and Rick wonders what happened to the place. Rionette assures him that everything is fine, and she only destroyed a small part of the building. Just then, the injured Lynx appears, and he explains that Raster beat him up. Rick is horrified to hear this, because he realizes that Raster did this, so he could be in charge of his exam. Lynx told Raster that his dream was to build a school in his hometown, but Raster just mocked and tormented him. Lynx couldn't do anything against someone powerful like Raster, and now he thinks that having a dream at his age is foolish. Lynx fears that Raster will do something much worse to Rick, so he begs him to drop out of the exam. Rick refuses to though, and declares that he wants everyone to know that it's fine to start doing things at any age. Back with Raster, he's busy taking out more of his own men, and one of his guards explains that there is an intruder. Raster's glad though when he realizes that Rick has decided to come. He thought that Rick would have dropped out by now, but this is okay with him, as he promises to show Rick what real fear looks like. Raster makes a grand display of his magic, but Rick still angrily declares that he will send Rick flying. Thanks for watching my recap. Subscribe to my channel to help us reach 700,000 subscribers.